Hello and welcome to the Say Kelsey Mindset and Manifestation podcast and now YouTube channel where we talk about all things getting out of your head and into expansion. And I can't even tell you guys, like, I'm really excited to be here. Kind of nervous, but like also really excited to like be sharing my content in this brand new format. And I want to share with you guys something that has been like kind of a struggle for me a lot of my life, and I'm sure you guys can relate. So this week's podcast / YouTube episode is talking about feeling good enough, feeling worthy. And I mean, this is something that I'm sure you guys might be able to relate to, but like it gets in the way, right? It gets in the way. This is something that has been coming up for me like over and over and over again in my own mindset and manifestation journey. Like in starting my business and getting in shape postpartum, in my money, with my money, in my relationship. Like it seems like every issue that I keep running into is connected to the feeling of just like not feeling like I'm good enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not, worthy enough, whatever it is. And I was laying in bed the other night and I just had this weird thought about, whether or not plants have thoughts that question their worthiness. And it got me thinking that let me back up for a second. So we're all made of cells, right? Like we're all humans made up of cells, right? Same with plants, right? They're all made up of cells. Even though the cells are a little bit different, my biology majors out there, like, pump the brakes. We're all made of cells, even though they're a little bit different, okay? So that means, at more of a deeper level, like what makes up a cell, right? Parts of cells, right? The cytoplasm, the nucleus, the mitochondria, all the ribosomes, all the things, right? Okay, so like what's even like smaller than the parts of a cell, right? And that is atoms, right? You learned about atoms in chemistry, and you learned that like that is the most basic makeup of anything in this world. It all just consists of atoms, right? Okay, so like what's smaller than an atom, right? And that would be a subatomic particle. Okay, so we have the atom, we have the parts that make up the atom, the subatomic particles, and like, so we're like, what makes up a subatomic particle? And that would be just pure energy, right? Just like vibration. Do you remember learning about in high school that depending on whether it was a solid, a liquid, or a gas, that is like how fast the atoms were vibrating, right? Even if it's just a solid, like this chair, even though this chair is solid and it's not moving, it's not living, it's not breathing, like the atoms in this chair, they're still vibrating, okay? So we can agree on that, right? We can agree that all things, living or non-living, are made up of energy, right? At the very most basic level, right? Okay, so if that's true, then doesn't that mean that we as humans and plants, right? Stick with me for a minute. Flowers, trees, whatever, we're made of the same basic energy. We're made up of the same source energy, right? Like we can agree on that, okay? So taking that a step further, would you ever think that a flower or a plant or a tree of some sort would question its ability, its worthiness, its good enoughness to grow? Do you think plants or flowers, let's just say a flower for, example purposes, would you ever say that a flower questions whether or not it is good enough to keep growing? No, right? Like that's totally silly and absurd, right? Okay, so that's because like obviously plants don't have like the consciousness to like have those thoughts, right? So like kind of makes me think that like plants have like a one up on us almost, because like they're not thinking about, they're not questioning whether or not they're good enough to grow. They're not questioning their, you know, whether they can reach their fullest potential. They're not questioning any of that shit. And if we are, as humans, are made up of the same source energy as plants, then isn't the most basic truth that we are all like worthy? Like that we're all inherently worthy, that we're all good enough, right? Because like, think about like babies. Like babies come out and they think they're the shit. They think they're the best fucking thing since sliced bread because like they are, they're so cute, and babies never have a problem asking for what they want, asking for what they need. And they never for a second question, you know, if they're cute enough or if they're good enough to keep going or like any of those things. So like babies and plants, like they're the most basic, like source pure energy. And if that's the case, which it is, then that means that we are also like the most basic, like made up of the most basic source energy. So like, where does the issue that we feel like we're not good enough come in? And that's because as we're growing up, as infants, we look to the adults in our lives, like right from like the minute we are born until we're about 7 years old, we're just a walking subconscious mind. We're just a fucking sponge, just soaking in every single thing around us, learning how to survive, learning what to do and what not to do. And naturally, we're going to want to please our caregivers. We're going to want to please our parents, the people that are taking care of us, because if we're constantly doing things to displease them, then maybe there's a chance that we're not going to survive. Right? So as babies, we want to do things that are going to please our parents, right? And so we're getting all this input in from our parents and our teachers and our siblings and, you know, like our church leaders and our friends and teachers and all of this stuff. And so somewhere along the way, we either picked it up from somebody else that there's a certain criteria in life that you have to meet to be worthy, to be good enough. You have to make a certain amount of money, have a certain amount of possessions, be in a relationship by a certain age, have a baby, have a family, like whatever fucking criteria it is. So we either pick that up from somewhere, or our brains concluded from an experience that we had that we weren't worthy to protect, like it concluded that to protect us. Right? Let me give you an example. So like, let's say that like the boy on the playground picked another girl. So your brain thinks, oh, well, it must be because I'm not pretty enough. It must be because I'm not smart enough. I'm not athletic enough. I'm not cool enough, whatever the fuck it is. And sometimes like, or maybe I should even just say like most of the time, things just are. Things are just neutral. Things are just the way that it is. Things only mean something because of the meaning that we give it, right? It only means something because we attach it as being good or bad or whatever. Like we tend to like make something mean something about us. Like the brain takes everything personal. The brain makes everything about us. Like I promise you, no one is thinking about you as much as you are thinking about you. And it's because your brain thinks that the whole world revolves around you. And I mean like everything that's happening in your reality is because of like your brain. So like that makes sense. But basically what I'm getting at here is that if plants and babies, literally the most purest source energy ever that hasn't been altered, it can't be altered, and humans, as us adult humans, are the same, then that means that there's no like, the only reason we question our worthiness, or if the fact that like the only reason we question if we're good enough or not is because like our consciousness is trying to make sense of what's going on in our external reality. And we as humans, we always want to make something mean something about something, but it doesn't mean anything. Right? Like it doesn't freaking mean anything. And so the most purest form of truth is that we are inherently worthy. Like, right? Like you would never think that Like you would think it was totally absurd to be like, oh, that flower probably like questions its worthiness, or that flower probably doesn't think they're good enough. Like that doesn't make any fucking sense, because flowers don't think that way, because they like don't have the consciousness to make something mean something about something. And so at its like most pure essence, it believes and it knows that it is worthy and good enough. And so that means inherently you are too. And that means inherently we are too, like all of us are. And it's not, you don't think you're not worthy enough because you aren't. You think you're not worthy enough because your brain has made a conclusion about something to make sense of something. Like that's literally it. That's literally fucking it. And I'm like, I feel like I'm just like so mind fucked by this, because I have been working so fucking hard the last 3-4 years to really like prove myself worthy of what I want in my life, like creating more money in my life, having happiness and love in my relationship, having success in my life, having friends in my life, like genuinely being happy in my life. And I just feel like I've just been on this hamster wheel of always trying to do things to prove myself to be good enough, and it's never enough. Like I'll hit these milestones, I'll hit these, you know, goals and whatever, and like it's never enough. And so I'm realizing that it's not something that I need to do in my external reality to make me enough. It has to start with like the inside out, right? Has to start with like up here, truly lovingly and radically like loving yourself for no fucking reason other than the fact that you exist. Period. And that's it. That's fucking it. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this, because I'm so excited to be launching my YouTube channel. I think it's going to be really fun, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. And I'm really excited to just like create this community of like healing and love and like mindset and like getting what we fucking want in life simply because we fucking want it. And like not questioning our good enoughness, our worthiness, before we go ahead and pursue those things. So love you guys so much. Thank you so much for listening to my first ever YouTube channel video and the Say Kelsey podcast. I love you so much. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok for more motivation and mindset practices and techniques every single day. Love you.